Hello. There have been quite a lot of people that have asked me uh, to make a video on things like shall, should, can, could, and the rest of them. Okay, I am going to do that, but there is an important thing, especially for those that are in the secondary school. For us to understand that area, we need to start from where we ought to start from. Now, those words are auxiliary verbs. But before then, let us start from where it should be started. Now, we know about the verb already as an action word or a being word. We know about the verb as this word class that contains words that point to actions or to status. Now, if you know about verbs or verb has two major classifications. Remember that we have the transitive, the intransitive, the finite, the non-finite, and the regular and the irregular verbs. Yes, I know about that. But we want to talk about the first classifications of verbs. I am talking about the area where we have the main and the auxiliary verbs. We have the main and the auxiliary verbs before you begin to talk about the others. Now, when we talk about main verbs, here you are talking about verbs that are action words. This is where you point out the action words part of the verbs. Now, these are what we refer to as the main verbs. This is where you see such words as cry, live, jump, talk, and the rest of them. The main verbs mostly comprise of action words. Now, on this part, we have auxiliary verbs. If you talk about auxiliary verbs, you are talking about helping verbs. Now, when I explain this to my students, I would draw an illustration from a particular, from Jeep. I know that some Jeeps have this gear known as auxiliary gear. That is for them to understand what that word auxiliary means. Now, auxiliary means to help. I will tell my students that most of the times that you see a car moving, it's normally just one wheel rotating and pulling the others. But for Jeeps, there is this thing known as auxiliary gear. Now, the normal gear still controls just one wheel, and that one wheel pulls the others. But if something happens and that car is stuck somewhere, what the driver does is to switch over to the auxiliary gear. This auxiliary gear will engage the four wheels to aid, to assist that particular wheel that normally rotates. The four wheels will come together to assist it, to push it out of that place. Now, that is what auxiliary gear does. If you talk about auxiliary means to help, to assist. Now, there are verbs that cannot stand alone. The way they cannot stand alone in sentences without being helped. Take, for instance, this form of verb, talking. I mean, when you have talking as a verb, not when you have it as a noun. No, I'm talking about when you have it as a verb. This word cannot stand alone in a sentence in the verb form. It has to go with an auxiliary verb, either am, or is, or was, or were. One of them must be there before this word will stand. So what they do there is to assist it. These are auxiliary verbs. Okay. Now, if you talk about auxiliary verbs are helping verbs, like I said before. These auxiliary verbs are divided into two. They are classified into two. We have what we know as the primary. This should have been here. It should have come first. We have a primary auxiliary and model auxiliary. I am putting it here because there are other things that we need to come on that, so understand that. Okay, we have the primary auxiliary and we have the modal auxiliary. Remember, these are helping verbs. This primary auxiliary verbs, this is what we mean. Primary auxiliary verbs. No, this should be primary auxiliaries, not auxiliaries, sorry. This one is further split into three categories. We have the verb to be. The verbs to be, we have the verbs to do, and we have the verbs to have. For the verbs to be, under these verbs to be, this is where you find words like be, am, is, was, where, there should be, I think, 8 a number or 7. There should be 8 a number here. Now, under these verbs to do, this is where you have such words as do, doing, did, and the rest. And under the verbs to have, this is where you have, has, had, having. These are under primary auxiliaries. Okay, it is under the modal auxiliaries that you see such words as can, could, may, might, will, would, must, ought, and this one normally goes with this, ought to. This is how it should be. Can, may, will, you have shall. Okay, have I written must? Yes, must, and some others. These ones, the modal auxiliaries, this is an aspect where they talk about mental attitude. They talk about attitudes. Now, what is going to happen is let us leave it at this. I just wanted us to understand how these verbs are classified before we then go into talking about how these words are used. Now, I did it this way in the interest of people who are secondary school students on this page because there are lots of them and I have received quite a number of questions from them. I would need them to understand how these verbs are classified before we now take the step. And the next step will be to talk about how these words are used, how they are used in sentences. The people that ask questions on sounds, especially the stress aspect of it, I have not forgotten. Gradually, I am going to arrive at all those questions that were asked. Thank you.